Welcome you to tonight's event and to what looks like the first inclination of the weather to change into a season. A rare occasion in California, but a formidably exciting one. Tonight's event is a very special one and not strictly speaking a part of the regular fall Holloway reading series at all. It is, as it were, the Holloway reading, in that the poet who will read from her work to us tonight is the 2012-2013 Roberta C. Holloway poet, Katherine Walsh. Among the previous Holloway poets are such notable figures as Louise Glick, Michael Palmer, Paul Muldoon, Yusef Komunyakaa, Anne Carson, Mark McMorris, Ariana Reins, and Judith Goldman. This unique and prestigious lectureship came into existence 30 years ago in 1981 through a bequest given to the English department as part of the estate of Roberta C. Holloway, who received her BA degree in English with honors from UC Berkeley in 1923 and her PhD in English here 23 years later in 1945. I would like to take this occasion to say something about the background to Roberta Holloway's bequest. As a poet, and in due course one with a PhD in English, it was her lifelong ambition to teach, even if only briefly, at her alma mater, UC Berkeley. This opportunity never came to Roberta Holloway. She spent her teaching years at San Jose State University. But as she reached the end of her life, she was determined to make such an opportunity possible for other poets. She left what at the time was a generous but not astonishing amount of money to UC Berkeley's English department as a bequest to be devoted to bringing a poet for a semester to Berkeley to teach and to enjoy the remarkable creative and intellectual culture of the English department's literary community. As required by the terms of the bequest, the committee supervising the lectureship was chaired by Josephine Miles for as long as she was an active member of the faculty. Josephine Miles, who died in 1985 at the age of 74, was the first woman to be tenured by Berkeley's English department. She was a nationally recognized and much honored poet whose work now has canonical status in the history of American poetry of the 20th century. Jeffrey O'Brien and I have decided that it should be part of the annual Holloway poet reading that a poem by Josephine Miles be presented. And we're now competing to see who can find the best ones for the occasions. This is called On Inhabiting an Orange. All our roads go nowhere. Maps are curled to keep the pavement definitely on the world. All our footsteps set to make metric advance, lapse into arcs in deference to circumstance. All our journeys nearing space skirt it with care, shying at the distances present in air. Blithely travel-stained and worn, erect and sure, all our travels go forth, making down the roads of earth endless detour. For a variety of reasons, it is wonderfully appropriate that the great Irish poet Katherine Walsh should be occupying the Holloway lectureship currently, and thereby be a presence in the Bay Area, and more particularly in the Berkeley English Department writing community. The degree and diversity of her commitments and seriousness, the ways in which she deploys political astuteness, her intellectual generosity, and her aesthetic daring offer a dazzling exemplar of poethood in a community that cares about getting that right. Katherine was born in Dublin, spent some years outside of Ireland, in Spain and in England, and now lives, when she's not in Berkeley, in Limerick, a city on the River Shannon in the western part of Ireland. As a very young poet, about the age of undergraduates here, at least of seniors, Katherine founded Hard Pressed Poetry in 1985, along with the poet Billy Mills, an undertaking they have sustained for almost 30 years now. They describe it modestly as, quote, a small press which publishes poetry that you won't often find in your local bookshop, end quote. But it has brought out books by some of the major innovative writers in Ireland and the UK, including Robert Hampson, Trevor Joyce, Tom Rayworth, Maurice Scully, and Geoffrey Squires. Hard-pressed poetry also serves as the distributor for some other small poetry presses, a time-consuming, thankless, profitless, and completely unsexy undertaking, but one without which there's no point to their publishing books in the first place. A year after founding Hard Press Poetry, Katherine Walsh's first two books came out, Macula and one of the best book titles ever, The Capater Pillar Thing, and more besides. A year later, Making Tense was published. 2 years after that, a volume titled Short Stories, and then came Pitch, City West, Optic Verve, and this year with another of the greatest book titles ever, Astonished Birds, Cara Jane, Bob, and James. Some of those books are available here for sale or for you to look at after the reading. Oh, which reminds me, also there's a reception after the reading in the English Department Lounge down the hall. How any culture or society imagines the figure of the poet varies from place to place and time to time, and from scene to scene, no doubt. In this time and place, at least in my experience of it, it is not who the poet is, but what the poet does that is of interest. It is not personality or persona, but works that capture our attention, intensify our awareness and concern, excite us to exercise our capacities for perception and thought. Katherine Walsh is a writer for whom being a poet entails diverse practices. Teaching is one of them, but she has also been, as I indicated, at the center of small press poetry publishing in Ireland, and a powerful influence on the ways in which innovative writing in Ireland and in the UK can be imagined. Affective and metaphysical interiorities are certainly important thematically and syntactically in her writings. But these are also sites from which fast-moving trajectories emerge into the ongoing, ever-changing, perhaps intolerant reality of things which don't tend to stop for us. As she says in one of her books, City West, look, I start, I exist, I finish, sincere, logical, law-abiding, no one part any the less than the sum of all my parts, again, release bow, step back. This can be taken as a visually and discursively complex description of her work, how it posits itself, how it forms and reforms itself on the page, or how it refuses to remain on the page. The formations into which Katherine's poems assemble, though never tentative, often seem impermanent. Other possibilities, other moments, other formations are in the offing. The lines I quoted a moment ago, again, release bow, step back, remind one that the poetry is both resolute and nimble. I read and I think with Katherine's poems not as artifacts created on pages, but as instantiations of a mind in action, and of the multiple currents of language on which that mind is moved about, into and out of patches of turbulence, into narratives and out of them again, across memories, through feelings, in and out of the light. These poems are not about living, they are doing living. At the very beginning of City West, standing almost as an epigraph, Katherine writes, the physical quality of life, that's living, and not the analysis afterwards or the moments of discord or premonition. This is real-time writing, propelled by what Gertrude Stein termed the intellectual passion for exactitude in the description of inner and outer reality. Although Katherine's work isn't so much descriptive as expressive, or it would be much better to say impressive. It is the impress of action, the impressions of the world at play around us, that language in its perpetual mobility records. Phrases dart into experience, sentences make perceptual forays, and because she can write, because there is writing, she can write them into poetry. There the impress can remain and become itself in that perpetual play we know as poetry, a place for mind's action. In optic verve, Katherine writes, these marks we make, hold in mind, ear, heart, brain, for you to take, us to understand. It is my honor to present to you the poet Katherine Walsh.
Okay, can you hear me? First, I would like to thank Lynn and all the Holloway committee, the English department, and Chris, and anybody else who has helped. I'd like to tell you all that I'm very, very pleased to be here. Thank you. Past against present, the unmoving against the moved, the unmoved against the moving, against measurement, the real and unreal familiarity, alienation. The place known, deviation necessary. The worm glowed on the dry sanded rock. Dorothy, which one, regular in oral poetry, was superficial, touching the known, or more of that, wakening resonances. I found them. Purple sea, slate grey shallot. What can be maintained, rain tonight, is only that which can be supported. I would like to be alone, she said reputedly, a sort of juice extracted from barley or grain. Drinking bouts of a day and a night are commonplace, and the quarrels they engender are settled by blows. The digressions concerning the virtues like its vices, fierce, combative, are all intended not to stop the march of the narrative, but to reinforce its episodic, disjointed progress. An heroic past, indeterminate, undifferentiated, ever-present. Associations, outcomes, single, cumulative, ending. And courage towards the harsh, the inescapable. Si yo pudiera tocar la luna, si yo pudiera colgarlo desde mi ventana, como una niña tonta, con su afán de verle las tripas de toda. Jala, ya estamos así, me pondría la carne de gallina, como desde que el mundo es mundo, hubieron tantas niñas, tan tontas como yo. Read below. The writer is thinking, coming winter, what will be done, has been done. Sense suspended just by the fireside, all things being of value, as they may be paralleled, provide evidence of regular custom, implicitly reveal conduct. A few weeks' time, it'll be winter again. I expect the river will freeze over. A form of consent, some of what's referred to plus the value ascribed it. The place must have been alive, vermin and grubs, seabirds droving round, the site desolate, factories raised for la Villa Olímpica, all pretense of support gone. Gitanos barracas fall in. Recover the loss. Each occurrence momentarily breaks the existing circulation, sends messages askew, leaves me less sure, less 1 minus 0 equals 1 minus 0 equals 1, 1. Previous to all or any of this that I may have mentioned, that one, that was the one that was. Write and ritualize learnt habits of image, their badges grown in the morning. I would feign punctiliously Indemnification? The free ingress. A baraka developed over 2 years to an attempt at a roof, garden always teeming children, half the kitchen permanently outside, it's empty. Weeds gather limed walls with crate, corrugated iron women of positive bearing, glancing, perhaps a net sack of damaged fruit and veg, sleeping child, or 2 sticks of semi-stale bread, black lace, plastic, all diamante. She combs her hair. Unless less important time now stood, element of still. Confrontation, less her only joy, time. I used to read her, stood, never rescind, they said, well, still, collectively denying any, oh well. Foreign tones cracked the new country under unaccustomed heat, settled endless jokes, one's exotic, evidently misplaced birds. She'd be very surprised to know, to think it what they wanted. Why? Someone quietly getting on, centred with what? But separate. 700 years don't change this. Having forfeited unnecessarily the effort to maintain one more thing that could not be regained, losing to disprove the scientists, the wind is getting up, all will soon worsen. Dancing the thin-skinned shoreline recedes. Losing prove worth. Before we thought is being to be lost without map or guide, to never understand, wander searching what the similar signs anyone, some familiar, is saying way. The easiest thing to do is fall asleep. Where idea of space, some order imposed, few things growing, movement, the rough felt underlay, warm. Survival is technique. Decide, he listened a moment ago. Revolutions became pictures, spaces of tone, shade, shapes of absence, stasis in the face of more instants. In this place he lived, always expecting a result, consequences blinkered out, possibility, muted to the forged line of event. The baby's awake, some toys squeaking. Are we back to Voltaire in the Comte de Buffon, or is that a line in direct descent? Should I wonder too much before criticising the blanked out contextual plane he sets his writing on? A lot of bangs, he must have thrown everything out of the cot now. Of course, that fear of definition, commitment, no feeling of mutable certainties to go on. It is the same, it is a place, the same or any place ordinarily found into you between the out of, from light to table to spaces on a wall, trace the effect of evening spent. Recurs inability to let go of moments. Time phases. What a waste. Waste, above all, the one. Repeats. Notion of genetic constraints, but with no belief. Reconciliation rounds these, features improbably no belief to speak of talk. So lots of those pieces have brought you from Spain to England and from pre-children to children. And in this latter part of this book, I'm back in Ireland, but not physically. Road, hedge, ditch, twisting narrowly to lane, level run in, hill, here a rutted pothole, climbed to the well. Knotted roots, sparse footholds, smooth clay. Over the ditch, stone, flat pebbles, cold water, running the rushes ragged, primroses. Past spring groves, beech, chestnut, bog oak, fairy wrath, wild fruit clumping, hassocks of long bog grass. This to the left, some perspective beyond the river, fast shallows, waterfall call, occasional machine, voice and song, carrying. Large, long, green barred gate, small wooden pen gate, small silver garden gate, sunset, small white wooden garden gate, bower of wisteria, the bay leaf, sweet William, Alison, phlox, flagstone, crab apples, onto the summer house. Walk the other way, avoiding bees, small green iron garden gate. I can't do any more than this. Certainly those insects appear on no other church accessories of that period. I have seen provenance, this skin, bone, painted light, the colours of your mornings. How can what I name anything do anything? Well, I all in, out, for, continue, knowing it slowly. So time, heavy with denial of loss. The young, in inverted commas, gaping, fuddled, be-spectacled, the old. Not the futile ancients' caricatures of portent. The way it was, she walked up the road so slowly, each long step long, to prevent the need for any one extra step, her body shape inverted, capital L, maintaining momentum without pitching straight on the head with support of a shopping trolley. Walking, slacks flapping, cuffs homemade, crooked, pale, grey-blue. About 1976 conservative size flares, grey hair lovely, blowing out all full, light, that clear skin, sun on wrists, knuckle thick. Years of acceptulation. Body weight. This does not give precedent. Previous, dated, before or when, was, earlier. Stratification of experience, no narrative, easy in the mind. Where are we? Out there? On there? Inside of what knows? Which some ancestors deemed themselves capable of remembering, of which descendants selected for re-engendering. Declan says, are fished? Not the voice below stairs ringing, televised. The street, Italian, cars, trucks, full house, tired, asleep, but for me, still. Wet roof, clear brown, beyond buffeted flowers, to light change, shade, tone more than grey, effectively impeding adumbration, moving lines, space, racing, point to point. How many in or out does it take? Each an anchorage in view of the wind, the sea, marathon, railway line, seaside of lonely night, walking, dark rocks shift, water breaks. Half the way home on one-way streets. So I'm playing from book to book, depending on where we end up. Tangency. This aspect tributary of free remission, hovering airwaves, stilling hiccup, relieving, springing, the hand on the heavy cracking shoulder, manning point, butts in heel, hand, ferocious torpor, written angrily, recurring similitudes, widely, lives. Way encountering, done after, before, tonal aspect, flinging familiar, syndrome. Freaked out, succumbed, ineffable limits. I want a sandwich phenomenon, what is displaced, wind, one either. Sending out nationwide appeal, query, discrepancy relates, the figures. Retorting can be 6 hours, most names having some cause, sounding. Hanging on string from a nail I should slice. Damp penetrating, shining the swaying rose hips, readjusting sleeping children, attaining comfort on the green grass, icily slushed trunks, corner of shadow gasps to lessen. Does that mean there are two separate, unknown abroad? Wide sweeps, housing on roads leading round housing, cul-de-sacs closing, encircling roads, one or two towards motorway, main roads bearing incessant weight. Let's face it, they're hard at it, carving the rigid chin of the composite capital, propping the pleated pilaster, particularizing to the point jot. After all, assuming affability, the more sets, the more suppositions, the more equations, the more terms, the more problem-thinking knowledge, due process leading circulatory thought deemed consequential knowledge, grinding halt. Should one place be better to stop than another, always, definitively, or stop as pause at all? Why should stopping not involve another part of due process, say decentralization at that point, first grinding halt, followed by another formulaic supposition? Surely such supports would pertain just as easily. Jot, where it becomes meaningless, but tight, oh so good and tight. Look, I start, I exist, I finish, sincere, logical, law-abiding. No one part any the less than the sum of all my parts. Again, release, bow, step back, tropistic behavior, dialectic infinite, the ultimate, eluding categories, exhaustion deadly of life available. Ready with sounds of water. And as to why I am, apparently in this position the stairs are wooden. Getting rid of all. The literature of, he quoted Democritus, sublime caricature, Dorothy noted such shawlies trailing the lonely, evident dearth, stigma. Sending out nationwide querying appeal, a discrepancy, the figures retorting can be up to 6 hours, most names having some cause, sounding the sick, hounded, hassled, hurt, sometimes killed. Not that all are, though it seems a general ruling exists. Over a third given wrong. And traffic. I'll tell you what. Swish, swish, up, back, get that. Baby and cot from nap in morning. Mother hearing sirens. Get that. Swish, swish. Yes, here's your bear. Curtains open, putting clothes away. Putting clothes away. Pack him up, pack him all away. I never want to see him again. Not I, not one bit. Rose hips waving by speckled bird on berry bush. Bright walleyes, sea, gnarled mushroom basket. Red basin, cellular growth within. Rain filling, rain falling, cells in. Look, see, recognize, name. Tell, listen, retell, repeat. All these many times varying order, unchanging landscape, rock beneath. Transient, sure, following ways, transferring, names, in recognition of similarity, difference, aware, extant. Threads on terrain, silence. If hearing how air moving through porous soil, between rock, what movement, how many minuscule shapes shifting, patterning so, light, dark, textures, minute particles affecting making, shapes, material, living, matter. These are all things that anybody can apply without having to go to any specialist. Those apart mentioning of a continent swifts told quick cries, light, told light, limitless opening, succession, shutter, dazzle, suspending matter, rock, great sun by solemnly, beach and displacement, unheard harmonic intervals, stead, unabstracted shafts, scale, columns, mathematical proportions, dense logic predicates air, but leap then. Those mentioning Swift's quick cries told light, limitless succession dazzled, rock by beach and displacement. Shafts, columns, dense air, but leap then. Part of a continent told light, opening shutter, suspending matter, great sun, solemnly, unheard harmonic intervals, unabstracted scale, mathematical proportions, logic predicates, leap then. Having attempted accretion of dispel caesura, are listening to many inherent symptoms, danger, music, heart, less than now, and thinking you've been, in a letter, writing beyond, unable, notional mausoleum, studio, all put upon. You can't collect your institute through throws without there's never enough to be found. Originals in use being gradually released from position, though English is spoken here. Derisive cadencing runs through 7-step weave. Don't live there now either. That's not true, having only seen it happen once. Cyclical intent of monotonous air. There you are, brief spot, less, lot, thinking, letters, my words, pal, they are, with care, analytical assurance of all relevant precedents respecting form, structure, context, usage, employed feebly, in lieu, proxy deployment rolling over on top of your stretched back, wide mouth, fine thighs whitening smooth. Having all the numbers, well, enough, 20% you chance upon. Absconding, haven't you? The job of usher, island, in the beam, pointing out, moving back, leaving, knowing more or less. This was a reissue of one of those very early books, Making Tents, in tandem with a book called Ideratra, which is Irish, which can translate as Between Worlds, or neither here nor there, neither one thing nor the other, in between. The same sky, close your eyes, coughing, tossing, yellow moon riding home, riding back, cold tap, corona of light in the V of bottleneck blackened treetops, fumed blue city line, nightly midget rotating feet on pedals around tracks laid down, many others intent action, sound might move us now, tunneling down the slope, but wasn't that somewhere else? that anymore what you wanted? No. No time, now, echoes, lengthen your sound. Ah yes, the motorway only partially V2'd, circumventing the issue. We don't need more images of the exaggerations of the reflections of images. Myth-making. While there is no passing sadness, disgust leading some ways towards the matters of agreement, yet never enough, never enough. There you are, you see, you can reach top from here. Much use that is to anyone in extremes, out of reach, top becoming lid-like, out of whose mind sags the inevitable riposte. There you are. There's not much you can do from here bar visit the sights, windowless, not given to demonstrations of, well, anything. Another in the long lore of traffic, tritness, tripping lep, too old for this unwillingness, and too young for before they even began in everyone. Do they only reach out to kill each other? Then always lost is a glad refrain. There are wings and wings. I'm sorry, little bear, you cannot have that wish. Never? Ever? Why? Dust clouds, song of birds, leaves whimmering by, marks, wings flapping, prolonged effete, bruised eyes. On the sea, waves buoyant brought out resting places, graves, gulls perhaps, tip, understand. And metaphysical meaning nets with joy jumping back out the holes. Out, let me out of the diligent, reasonable, vacuousness, limits. The gift of wonder, the wonder of maddening in the endless strata of conceptual errors. And a different Dublin, of which very little exists now. I really used to feel nauseated hours afterwards, unable to eat, sit at table with the others. Couldn't eat cheese for days, bear anyone picking crumbs. Winter months couldn't stay the stink of cooking chicken or other fowl. Not being constantly sick, she had a rota of complaints recurring, stomach worsening the weaker she became. Feeling I felt with the fetid plucked chicken, or that smell, emerging remembrance, game hanging in the dairy. Unwittingly walking into stench, not to breathe in again, grab the butter dish, run for it. No escape, breath. Not the only one finding her hard going. Getting small hands through cuffs, evidencing lack of precision. How she ever cleaned, blacked, scrubbed, waxed so many, brushed, sprinkled so much. Carefully kept a dairy too out behind the house. Blind widow, cold, damp, one-room flat. All years in one place, polishing linoleum in the dark, moving the same pieces carefully round the table, depending thrice weekly visits of the under-10s administering, Budgie's dying. This old lady lived on James's Street, which is very near Guinness's brewery. And as small children, under 10s went with somebody who was over 18 to visit a whole rota of elderly people in the neighbourhood, just to make sure they were okay, depending on the weather conditions, shop, that kind of thing. Malt high on the air, currents of unease, running appeasement. Adolescent returning, gradualism from pub, town, something on in back lane, couldn't pass the black door. The way the steps sat, music, light, always more important things. Ruins still there, 15 years, step intact. Hundreds all over town. Loud clanking, trundling, scraping shovel on concrete. The grey leaf, the green leaf, the grey-green leaf, the greeny leaf, the grey leaf, grainy leaf, grainy leaf, grainy grey, green leaf of a tree, off a tree, of a tree, off on a pavement, off of a tree on a pavement. Grainy grey, green leaf of a tree, off of on a grey, grainy pavement, green leaf, grain, dirty rain trails. Twee, twee. If I had a little bird. Conditional. Dependency clause. Not on. Where is it? Well, where is it? Scraping of shovel on concrete. Short, rapid brush strokes. Hard bristle on concrete. Grainy, grainy, green, grey, green, just green. A just green leaf on it. Just green, green. Declamatory. Okay then. A green leaf on a grainy, grey pavement. Pavement's wrong. What's it? Footpath. A grainy, grey footpath. Clattering of spade, brush on wooden cart. Humping. Heavy breathing. Trundling cart. Sound of wheels. Quietly. What is the sound of wheels? On a grey footpath? What is the sound of a green leaf on a grainy? No, not grainy. Then start again. Here we are. There's where it is. Singingly, hummingly. What is the sound wheels make on a grey footpath? What is the sound of a green leaf on a grey footpath? What is grainy? Brushing, scraping. It's coming down any minute now. Where? Well, where is it then? Where's the jacket? Scrabbling. They do, but they don't. The council, the local borough council, no corpo and county here, no crack, the greetings. Here's a likely looking pair. Politely, respectfully. Shoveling sounds. Accelerating footsteps, female voice. I don't know, George, drunk. This time of the morning, dear? Don't know. Well, Irish, Scottish, perhaps. Sniffing. Ah, well. And up yours too. Stop there, stop right there, here, there, any place, space, stop right there, that's here, was here, there, anywhere. What a load of, doesn't mean, or we only want to feel our incapable world happening. Johnson adrift, it's all animate. Poetry struggling to contend with a lack, our socializing instincts gone apeshit, thinking we know. Credo inanimatus. Green leaf, sound, wheels on pavement, no, footpath. Contending with space. We box it, label it, extend language, fencing effect to move ourselves. We extend bridges of words to pass over instead of ourselves. That's it. Misnomer, space, misnomer, space is. That, this, that, what, where, they're better ones, only starting it all again. Screeching brakes, skidding tires, car horns. Look where you're going, can't you? Shouted. Shouts. Muttering. Compulsion, all our compulsions. A pity, here we are. Hello there, jocularly. Male voice, middle-aged. Footsteps tramping briskly off. Like it was real or something. Oh well. It could be worse, isn't that what they say? Cart stopping, thumps and bangs. Scraping metal on concrete. Whoever they. Sharp brush strokes. Spasm of deep coughing. They must be. Humping. Thumps, bangs, cart bumping, picking up rhythm, getting going. Ameliorative. It is the factory of delight. Have you ever seen snow? And of course, when the snow gets deep, some places say, high up on the hills. Have you ever played games in snow, lying deep to leave a shape, throwing snowballs, rolling snowfolk? It's cold. There are lots of stories about snow. A Russian one, the wish, divine, working hard at it, hard at it. She's not a real girl, but she's ours. The opposing currents, the wish divine. Or as rambling the frozen locks, we went on tea trays, scraping by the lucky bread crate owners, every step behind your road's barrage of snowballs in the neck, running, ducking, running after them, the nearest unmushed heap still white on top, away from feet, tires, paws. Digging out paths, pavements, sand here, salt, a grocery shop list, hasty system distributing scarce provisions. It got you moving. Sequence of change, necessity. Are you leaning to one side now? Use the opposite arm to the leg that's bending, sweeping it right up across the sky. Have you ever seen snow? Flakes falling, spun out, pain still winging on, belief that writes. Time passes, never to return to us, and sorrow is then of no avail. Take a break. Don't worry about the post-its, it's so I have choice. And don't fumble quite as much. Mid-late December 05, words, weight, persuasion, each affirmation, wives and daughters, a value among poetry and prose, those who venture out. And here we are, style transmutable through the 21st century. Language fails where they've only begun. The lazy getting round to it. Convention apparently ensuring its worth, or some 18th century rationalism, such throwback to, versus what? Uneven, quotidian, ignorance, the external materialism framework, still skeletal, mind the gap, scaffolding, stagnant gap. The train sped off every day, wearing, bending through the tunnel, tones a rush of heated vertical structures of air on the repetitive power draft, passengers seemingly only having jumped on, defying internalized doors closing, a coattail here, a squashed claustrophobic expression, ideologies which were there justifying oppression. Words weight, each affirmation of value among those who venture out, style transmutable through language fails, the lazy convention apparently ensuring its worth, or some such throwback to uneven, quotidian, the external framework still skeletal, scaffolding, stagnant, gap, every day wearing tones, vertical structures of power, defying internalized ideologies which were justifying oppression. Mind the gap. The train sped off, bending through the tunnel, a rush of heated air on the repetitive draft, passengers seemingly only having jumped on. Doors closing, a coattail here, a squashed claustrophobic expression there. Is it revelatory form, small sketch, incarnation, range contributing, or textured white with chilies, the common object? Metaphysics and outdated anomaly, captivating an unwieldy accusation, when meant something. By the time he was being exuberant, memories drifting enthrallingly after the war, a finished machinery, frozen ideas, packets troubled by a beautiful melancholy in conversation. Comedy is a play, showing the moment to bite upon. Comes one of the first shambolic forgiveness to provide, considerably in vogue, expect a story pervade. Boat out, no sail up, yet some breeze, fishing lines cast, hard, lean poles twitch, bend, scales of repetitive movement, chorus of laughter, voices thrown across dawn, bay, early daylight, shaded lamps hazed, controlling perspective. Poem pleat. Bracketing, lives, scales, chain-mailed, eyes held, wide open by will, power, see. Next, gyrating on the line, stumbling over thresholds, balancing in doorways of tremendous towards a spherical, light, depth stretching, focus over points, stasis, evanescent, barely perceptible movement. Some difference, opined, heard nothing, but tiny shiftings, shuntings, cracklings, driftings, saw nothing, but shapes, round wall bouncing curves on an inclined plane towards a meniscus called sky, pliable, interlocking, a term, life. These marks we make, hold in mind, ear, heart, brain for you to take us to understand. Algebra, restoring, process of moving the subtracted over. Al-Muqabla, comparing, subtracting equally, whichever side you're on. It comes from completing, balancing, or the inheritor. When the sun is 19 degrees below the horizon, twilight, gauging the atmosphere, a depth unverified till space exploration. Aware of gravity's existence, with depth stretching, his vision extends, emerging optically, philosophically, immeasurable mensuration in the estimation of beauty. Algorithme, Ibn al-Hatham. Read page 1 again. Time, null and void, abstract and achievable, the decision to measure natural phenomena and their effects on against other natural phenomena, including ourselves, humans. Negative, positive, minus, plus, before, after, past, now, future, finished, just happening, about to, yet to occur, flexible stance, elastic balance, all-seeing eye, straight refraction, give and take, tension, to hang actions from, moments of occurrence, the balance of, moment's occurrence now as a thing, all thing, moment as action, second, pause or effect, then as causal or empty, finished. The balance implicit in my leaving there. Astonished birds, shells from strands of lore. Perhaps it's the fish which astonished birds imagine monologues on aspects of art, or perhaps astonished birds are the fish which imagine monologues on aspects of art, or perhaps the fish which astonished birds imagine themselves being, imagine monologues on aspects of art. Or perhaps astonished birds imagine monologues on aspects of art. So Perhaps the fish which could imagine imagined monologues on aspects of art, and perhaps the fish which astonished birds imagining are as the astonished birds imagining the fish which imagined, then perhaps it's the astonished fish which imagined birds imagined monologues on aspects of art astonishes, as perhaps the astonished fish which astonished birds imagined monologues on aspects of art is as the fish which astonished birds imagining. So astonished birds monologues on aspects of the fish which imagining aspects of art. Perturbed by light, its shapes, what's left out, searching each day for spaces of light, traceries demonstrating quantity, quality, duration, density, absorption, going all the way home, displaced by likelihood, light potential, showings, spaces, juxtaposition of particulate matter dominating route choice, stopping points. Catching pictures, bouncing refractions, negotiate in milliseconds how thick, quivering, tentatively interconnected aerial expanses threaten any known solidity, tonal encompassing of edge, flexible reiteration of glint, hardy exposition of plane. This is a low sun, high by 10:30, profoundly cold spring start here, perhaps only 4 or 5 more days of clarity, reason to look, stopping points of plane, to look, perturbed by light, catching the picture, this is a home, displaced by the tonal encompassing, look. Anything you have, you carry with you. Anything you do, you make. Vice versa. No one can take away from you ever that which is yours alone. A room is a room is a room. That rose. Oh, bright star. The space is necessary. It cannot be bought. Services and locations may be bought to aid or facilitate the tardy, unimaginative, ill-disciplined, simply to buy more time. They do not constitute the idea of the room. Creative fecundity, unhindered writer-given reign. That big word again, freedom, tentatively. Never thought it would come to this. Lots of writers from pre-such production times understood this necessary objectivity, abandonment to the head. Symptomatic of our present and recent past, all re-explained concretely. Articles, items, places, jobs, comprehension of the mundane. So a room, stuck there metaphorically, any magpie concurs mode. Similarly echoing political phraseology of much critic speak, accepted codes rarely scrutinised, a rigorous scrutiny needed. More a slapdash only looking for evidence of blah affair. Tedium, analogy just another device. Not quote, soundbite, device, pointing out how works as it delimits. These are the facts, yet this is the reality. Actuality is factual, factually present, really now. How perspective is adumbrated, shared out and reiterated, amended and exaggerated, refurbished. These are the facts, yet this is the reality. Deal with that. Contravention and celebration, mourning, declaration, fantasy in white. Some things will change. They just may not be the ones you counted on. Day is long, goes by fast, flick of an eye, curl of a lash, hint of a grin. Day comes, day goes, torrid air moves, distant sirens cry. Horizon of brick, ledge, chimney stack, tarmac lines eating into one another. Colour bleeding perspective, murk and grey, charcoal and wet slate, sedge and verbena. Lights changing, everything moving. What is a natural world, which is made. These problems of grammar, syntax, constraints of Lexus, sedge and verbena varying through the illuminative cloud cover. Sky. It made my friend fall over. Sky. She had never seen so much happening in one before. Just as a face is a picture. Pull one, now. This is not suggestive. Perhaps you should do that again. Light relief in the programmatic pantomime. Design. Murk and grey, the hazy daytime silhouettes. Shed in a siding, winking light on a truck. Bulk as silence, as shadow. Sentinel figures of the geocart. Necessary, solid. Charcoal and wet slate. Green of greys. It is a true thing. Who sees? Butcher's pavement after heavy rain, raw light through the plate glass frontispiece, spilling out across dark marked squares, rectangles. An evangelical appeal momentarily, colour leading perspective. These problems of writing. Imagine monographs on aspects of art, lights changing, everything moving. What is a natural world which is made? Natural world which is made, lights changing, everything moving, what is? Scarves of mist dispersing over the river, African violet blooming to death, possibly a cup of hot coffee, wedge of chocolate apple pudding, ploughing through job ads littered with error, typos, folder of sheet music, dining room table. Still attempting to re-quantify optically what constitutes in the eye of the beholder, perceived mechanically, programmatically, in conjunction with, in colour too, applied to realia, lushness or sparseness, vegetation in the field of study, many questions unanswered, 1,000 years, something to do with your hair. Life goes on till all hours, where slate grey wet Atlantic light slopes across a granite face, glinting water drops, oozing quietly out of the thick layer of composite blanket bog, saved for today in a conservation site, slains resting, creels empty, only the odd roadside structures, small patches, enterprisingly thatched, roped down hard. Winter's stockpile, the heathers far from blazing in this richly muted landscape, changing hues while I think, watching. 20 questions, all answers probable, blown down into Killary, round Clubay, where all those ancestral O'Malleys, Burkes and related denizens of our tribe played. Forays and homecomings, win or lose, wine for city merchants, turf wars, Tom making pictures by Loch Corrib, Kong, O'Malley chalice not yet dug up, life, what happens? Go to the National Museum, see it displayed. Brought my kids, bought the postcards, marvelled how it survived, secret, preserved, forgotten, gone to some graves, on a boat to Spain, France, America. Food of dreams, fabric of life, stuff of legend. Both sides of the country, families dug up over a couple of centuries, artifacts that help to recreate a little of our past, carve a bit for the future sense of a perspective. Its actuality, the living texture of its remains. Sight of pikes wrapped in bloody oiled linen, bits of leather buried deep in a ditch, smell of clay, dogs, uncovering bones. The strange but true fact that some of their predecessors a couple of centuries earlier on the run too went across to the other side of the country, away from their boolies in the Wicklow and North Wexford hills, hiding out to the limestone and bog of Connemara, the granite in the heights. Safe harbour, wide bay, rocky coves, lighting bonfires on headlands, burying butter on the run, or to be there on return from bullying. How many kids even know where they put their school bag at the end of summer, let alone the butter? Butter as wealth, health, prized. Blood and butter, milk and bread, oats on the griddle or in the black three-legged pot on the turf fire. Traditions of literacy, advocacy, representation, hard men and women, an uncompromising tenacity. Hard work, sharp funny bones, language a tool, implement of power, element of destruction, a decision forced by circumstance but taken with intent, stem the tide, turn the tables, reopen old trade routes, regain lands, knowing the so-called wild countryside like the back of their hands, each headland, cattle path, bog road, rivulet, salmon run, grove, bog. Generations of children reared for survival in this new language, brought up to go away, work for more, other, mind what they knew, mind what they said, bring it all back home. Astonished birds, in over a minor hill, post accumulations unrequested, couched in fabulous colour, plethora of font styles, language of birds, resuming normal path, picking worms, habitat intact, nonetheless strutting carefully. Territorial robins, daylight lingers, last clouds blown away. Pale sky emulates brightness, returns us to spring, staves off night. A sorrowful complaint, echoing its lament, prefiguring any musical terms necessary to its rendition. A lay, strange, wild love song. These forms of troubled expression, pre-sentimentalization, figuring. Morning would come. Chairs stand at table. Airways contract, expand, react. Hearts beat, feet slide, lift in some dazed replication of neat pugilistic steps designed to outwit, glide, sift, reflex reactions adept at nothing, the most important fact achieved, that nothing. Those lesser everyday catastrophes elided in surface tensions necessary to create form, a view. Trampoline implies bounce, spring, reverberation. Voices use facets of content, aspects of style, items of structure fictive on the line while waiting, silent, ordinary, alert. What is sprung? Tight wire, dips, sways, vibrates. Listen, that dog bark part of mind encompassing holds sound, name, action, and active non-temporal density of particulate ions, atoms of uncertainty, chance their charges, dance, realign, mute, till surging orchestrates through friction, movement, leap, synapse singing. Picture, chair, folding table, leg, impossible, birth. The weave is rush in, textural aplomb. We would see you less, head turned aside, hair loosely tied back long upon a green fabric. The picture, chair, folding table, leg, impossible, birth. Beautiful night, stern presence of sky, important, perfectly commonplace rage. Could see it, see capriciously, fellowship, unconventional perhaps, and this facility, reminiscently discreet, quiet woman, hearing all its changes, irrationality. What if she said, sorry boys, that rigorous, just not seeing off the competition, get fit? Or what if she decided to rigmarole pedantically as the Saturday job, shunting stock lists required for its erudition? Was that audition? No, auditory, well, ignition, or a view of interdite. Could be some cog was missing. B for 5, thriving is how you all miss coming on tardy, so slow, lardy is grease monkeys. Let's drop some spanners, see the works while clangers emit mooting less each limit. bypass an eluctable dressage eventing somewhat showily across the greenbacks. I was watching, tiring of watching, was moving away still, yet moving away again. All right, moving along, the harsh, prefabricated, sewn-on after scenes of nylon flight, moving past seasons, surfeits, repeals, moving through light, moving through thick, slow, contaminated particles, might carry some oxygen, moving through fight, moving through curve, hastily plain, moving through dot, line, summation, odd judgmental creatures, jumping off boxes on the sideline, moving through night at last, lengthy, moving towards that aperture, blank, moving towards sight, moving towards a fierce, uncalibrated, quixotic, quite untold, moving walls, moving signs, moving streets, moving quintessentially boring kinds of time, moving like, all right. And I just want to finish right now with one piece from this, which I hope I can find. This is where you think I should put a contents list really. First lines of pages or something. Here we are. The reason I want to read this is so I've touched on history and geology and geography at various points in the other books, and this is very local to where I live at the moment. And this actually happened. This is a real thing. It's a real place, except it isn't anymore. At that archaeological site on the right of the Monaleen Road, down past the National School on the way to Sandville Cross, just into your right there when you've passed the green beside Monaleen Park, underneath the new road. The archaeologist said that what Mr. Healy's 4th class and the older children at Monaleen National School saw this morning will be covered with a new road by the end of the week. A fortification, a roundhouse, cremated bones in urns older than the settlement as they were found under their bank, a broken skull of a woman of around 40 years old in the trench around the house, pre-Christian, late Celtic, ripe old age, charcoal, pottery, iron knife, blade intact, whetstone, a thumb scraper for curing hide, and the ubiquitous and much more recent bowl of a clay pipe, mark intact. Were the 2 children and adult in the urn burial accompanied by their pet, or were those the bones remaining from some kind of feast or funeral? How many people lived there? 12? 20? What did they cultivate on the hilly slopes around them? Did they build small enclosed field systems on the slopes like the ones in evidence on the side of the hill by Loch Gur? What did they grow? What animals were about? There would have been wild wolves. Did they have domestic dogs? Would they have fished along the Mulcair? Did they know or trade with the people who lived at the site found by Ballysimon? What did they hunt? What will their midden tell us about dinner, bread, and their manner of dining? And how much of what we can know is verifiable through finds at this site or cross-referenced with other sites' results? How much is speculation? Wonder. When the bright night sky was cinemascope, inspiring awe, showing stories as shape, light, movement, wonder world beyond the tangible, for interpretation, reinterpretation. Each succeeding generation, Earth untouched for possibly 4,500 years, we walked there. Now it's air. Thank you very, very much.